And salutations, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday sermon that's on Monday because I don't care about the Gregorian calendar because that's just another piece of church propaganda. Only according to Dante. And can we really trust him? That was a political hit piece. That entire thing was just everyone I. The real title of Dante's Inferno should be titled "Everyone I Don't Like Is in Hell," and everyone who disagrees with me politically is in hell. That's what the title of that book should be. So mean, again, we could do a whole section on, you know, is there even a hell? Because the whole good book is a bit murky on that whole subject. There's a few guys that say so, but the authoritative authoritators don't talk a whole lot about it, and it's certainly not what we think. 9 Inch Nails. I enjoy that song. That's a good one. I believe that's track 4 on Down Spiral. Maybe track 3.
Praise hail and praise Dale.
Welcome, Kurt. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so hope everybody's doing well on Labor Day today. Hope you're having a grand time. If you're at work, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. If you're at home, hope you're enjoying it and taking at least 5 minutes to appreciate the fact that simple days off like this were hard won because the proletariat is what they are. So, you know. Ah, well, thanks for stopping in, Barry. I hope this makes your coffee go down a little more fun. So yeah, I'm still prepping season 3. We're getting it all lined up. New look again. We're gonna change the look of the stream every year and change the focus. So season 1 we just did a bunch of random mishmash little segments about laws and stories and what kind of angels there were because I wanted to give you all a better understanding of all the characters in this ridiculous book. Then season 2 we did more of a theology and a true understanding of what Christians actually believe, and we had a lot of fun with that. And then we ended, with the batshit insanity of, Fear and Loathing on Patmos. And so after that, I wasn't really sure where to go with season 3. There's also a lot going on here at Riff headquarters in my personal life with both myself and my family. So just, didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver. You get that coffee, Barry. And we are going to. So, but I didn't want to just. I missed doing this. I'll be honest. I missed doing it. I missed hanging out with you guys and talking about these stories. I missed the time that I spend prepping these stories are very, very interesting for me. I don't know if I want to say it's spiritual because I don't even know what that means. And I also don't want to sound like a 42-year-old white woman at a yoga class. But that said, there is definitely some kind of, you know, metaphysical experience for me that goes on when I work on these. And so I, wanted to do some one-offs. I wanted to do some one-offs. And I thought, you know what? I don't really care what I do for these one-offs. Let you guys decide. So, as I do these, we're going to talk about different. Kurt's handling the shout-outs for the 42-year-old white women in yoga class. Thank you. Um, I was like, I came up with a bunch of topics I could do, way more than I'm going to do. And so I decided, why not let you guys, the people who make this so worthwhile for me, the people that tuned in, the people that subscribe, the people that chat, the people that hang, what do you guys want to know? So I'll be reaching out to you from time to time if you're in the Cord. If you're not in the Cord, you should get in the Cord, and then you won't be missing out. But yeah, so we went to our buddy Lord Bale. Let's just shout out Lord Bale while we're at it. And if you're not following Lord Bale, you should be. But I'm pretty sure everybody here is. And I said, Bale, here's some topics. What do you want? Surprising to no one, Bale picked Bible Sexy Time. So we are going to talk about some sexy time stories from the Bible. Now, this is, of course, also for Bale. I'm going to give out a trigger warning. That's right, Bale. I'm giving out a warning about content to follow just for you. There will be depictions of rape, incest.
It's a big dog and it's taking a fat
Just,
dump.
yeah, there's gonna be some unpleasant shit. Genital mutilation. Yeah. All of that and more is about to be coming at you. So if you are uncomfortable with hearing descriptions directly from the Bible about that, then I would advise you to tune out now, and that is okay. But I do not want to shock anybody or scare anybody because we're about to talk about some really fucked up shit. Oh, they're sexy times, believe me. Hey, all right, look. We could read the book of Numbers if you guys just want straight sexy time, where it says, and so begat so and so, and so begat so and so. We could sit there and read that entire book for an hour if that's what y'all want to do. Because literally every one of those is like a sexy time happened and another person. 69 is a number. But instead, does that demon show up, Bale? That's more of an Apocrypha thing. We haven't branched into that yet. But yeah, there is some. I went for the insane stories because believe me, I still had to call the pack. So I picked out five and a half, sort of, that are just wow. Like these are something. So I hope you get a laugh out of them. I'm also gonna break them down a little bit. I would say that the vast majority of these stories never happened. They are storytelling tools, and I will break that down, which of course makes it even more fun for us to ponder why the fuck was that the metaphor you chose? These are all questions that we're going to try to answer here, friends. So, without further ado, welcome to the Bespoke Blasphemy Series, episode number 1, The Horny Bible. Because seriously, there is some kinky shit in here. So, our first tale, if everyone remembers correctly, it probably is, Book. Fail. So, real quick, everybody remembers our homeboy Lot, right? We remember Lot, remember the Sodom and Gomorrah thing. I hope we also all remember that it was not about being gay. That was not what it was about. It was about a whole bunch of deviancy. It's not exclusively like these guys are gay, so God killed everyone. But if you remember, Lot bounced out of town with fire and brimstone raining from the heavens. That's important to keep in mind for this next story. We're talking about Lot and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. We have a very disturbing painting of what we're about to talk about there by Joachim Watteau from around 1600. He's a great Flemish painter. You should check out more of his shit. He's awesome. I could talk about paintings all day, but we're not here to do that. So, last we saw Lot in our tales here, he and his 2 virgin daughters, who he had offered up to be raped by the angry mob instead of letting them have the what we believe to be angels who had showed up to tell him to get the fuck out of town because God was, bringing the banhammer down on Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, if you what we are led to believe from the text, especially some Hebrew texts and whatnot, is that Lot had other kids. He had sons who had married daughters and lived there. He had daughters who had, married men of Sodom and Gomorrah. They stayed behind. They did not go with him when he left, so we're to believe that they all died in the great smiting. So, and remember, our last exposure, what happened to Lot's wife? She turned back, pillar of salt. So Lot is alone with his 2 virgin daughters in the wilderness. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, they went to they went and they hid out in some cave. It's him and his daughters there in a cave. Now, what happens next has been said by some people that this is the situation. And I want to preface this by saying this is not the situation. These people are stupid. But there are many Christian scholars who will tell you that the reason Lot's daughters did what they're about to do is they believed that the entire world had ended and that they were the last 3 people left on Earth. That holds no fucking water. And I will explain that in just a moment. But what happens in this cave? On successive nights, his daughters got him blackout drunk and raped him. Just marinate on that for just a second. His two virgin daughters get their dad blackout drunk and rape him to the point of conception for both of them. Yeah. The alcohol, great question, Barry. Furthers my point on how they couldn't have thought it was the end of the world. Why? Let's look at the actual text, shall we? Lot and his $2 left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. Did you catch that? First fucking verse there. They went to a city after Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed, but that city was also probably not the happiest place on earth, and so God decided that, they should Lot got nervous and was like, dude, what if God smites this place too? I need to get out of here. And he goes off into the woods into the mountains with his daughters, and they go into a cave. So there is absolutely no fucking way that they thought that the world had ended because they were just in a city. Now, I'm not saying they weren't traumatized as shit. My God. It had just rained fire. All right, let's recount these girls' days. Let's talk about trauma here. These girls had first had their father offer them up to an angry mob. Oh no. Am I frozen? Am I still frozen? Or have I... Okay, yeah, I think I'm fixed. Sorry about that. Okay. I hope I'm still here for you. So yeah, these daughters. So an angry mob descends on their house when their father takes in two strangers. And then their dad offers them to be violated by this group of strangers instead of these two men that had come to their house. So that started their day. Then these two men are like, you guys got to get out of here or everybody dies. They leave their other siblings behind and they go with their dad and mom. They flee from town as it is literally raining fire and brimstone from the sky. Then their mother turns back and they see her turned into a pillar of salt. That is a fucked up evening, and these girls clearly had PTSD. They then go to a town with their dad, who their dad is obviously also traumatized. Yeah. And so their dad then says, we got to get out of this town. God might do that shit again. So they run out and hide into the mountains. And in the mountains, they come to the conclusion here that one day the older daughter said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man around here to give us children, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father. I would also like to point out, I know that it just says sleep with him there. The translation that is used, most rabbis will tell you the word that they believe that the Greeks used in when they translated it from the text that they had, and that it's gone through the Talmud and all this other stuff, that the word was rape. That the term was basically to have sex by taking forcefully. This was not, they knew. The term is used here that the daughters were aware that this was 11 degrees of fucked up. And then sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father. That night, they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day, the older daughter said to the younger, last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the youngest daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. Here's the rub, guys. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. Did you catch what happened there? Did you catch what happened there, guys? This whole story is an elaborate origin story fuck you to two of Israel's biggest enemies, the Moabites and the Ammonites. These are guys that they did not get on with, did not like, and they, did nothing but cause the Israelites grief. So, what better way to slander them than to claim that they exist as the product of incestuous drunken rape? It's a giant fuck you to the Moabites and the Ammonites. There are family trees that go like all the way back. Maybe one day we'll do a family tree episode, but yeah, it's pretty fucked up. But yeah, it's hilarious, right? Like, clearly this didn't happen. The Ammonites and the Moabites are, I would say, with an intense amount of certainty, not the product of Lot's daughters drunkenly raping him in a cave in Syria somewhere. No. That's not what happened. But it's a great slander, but again, it's a really fucked up slander. Or is it? Now, you guys all remember the guy from high school that called everybody the F word? And you wondered, like, was he secretly gay and that's why he was so busy calling everybody else gay? You wondered about that guy. Well, Israel's got a lot of that stink on him here. What do I mean? Well, first, I guess I should explain this passage a little bit. So, this next passage is the very next chapter in the Bible. So, the chapter ends, what you just read ends. That ends the chapter with, Lot's daughters, raped away, and that's what happened. So, that part, that's where it ends. The next chapter starts, and we're back to Abraham, Lot's brother. And Abraham is traveling with his wife, Sarah, and their gear, and he gets stopped by Abimelech. Abimelech is a king, a little small, like, city king. And when he meets up with him, the king asks him, "Who is this chick with you?" And for a reason that is so convoluted and almost impossible to try to make sense, he tells him that it's his sister. And the king goes, "Cool, your sister's hot. She belongs to me now because I'm the king, and it's good to be the king." So he takes her. God, now this is so interesting to me what happens here. God comes to Abimelech. We don't know how Abimelech knows who God is or gets that El is real, because it seems like it's stated beforehand that Abimelech is not a follower of El. But yet, when El shows up, he starts talking. And what's really interesting is El kind of seems powerless in this situation. Because what El tells Abimelech is, "Yo, I know that you took that woman thinking that it was just dude's sister, and that you're the king, you can do that." And God's like, "And that's totally cool." Fucked up thing number one. El totally sanctions that. Like, "Hey, I get it, you're the king. You grabbed this bitch because it was just his sister, and you can do that." But God goes, "I hate to break it to you, that's actually his wife." And he's pissed. And he's going to ask me to smite you, and I'm going to have to smite you because he asked. And I don't want to smite you. And Abimelech, oh yeah, there's the wink. Abimelech goes, "Yo, God, you know I did this with a clean conscience. I thought it was his sister. Kidnapping dude's sister and forcing her to marry me is totally cool. But I haven't touched her yet. And I won't touch her now that you're telling me she's this dude's wife. And that, he's going to have me killed by you because he's a powerful prophet." Almost sounds like controlling a demon or a wizard through witchcraft more than a god, worshiper relationship, if you ask me, but nobody asked me. And so Abimelech grabs Sarah and hightails it back to Lot, or to Abraham, and is like, bro, I didn't know that was your wife. I would have never snatched her. Why didn't you tell me it was, why didn't you tell me that this was your wife? And Abraham hits him with a stone cold stunner, because that's how Abraham rolled. No, so Abraham is like, and so he brings Sarah back, and he's like, so what are you doing? And so Abimelech says to Abraham, early next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials. When he told them what had happened, and God had told him about this, Abimelech called Abraham in and said, what have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should never be done. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what was your reason for doing this? Abimelech is saying, because you lied to me, that's why I took her, and now you're going to have God smite me. Why'd you set me up like that, bro? You should have just told me it was your wife. Tell me it's your girl. Abraham replied, I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Lannisters, the parents of the Israeli nation. I'm sure someone will tell me that was super commonplace. That's fucking weird. That's your half-sister. Like, your dad had a daughter with one of his other wives, and you married that chick. So, all of a sudden, calling your enemies the products of incest, I don't know. To me, it takes a little bit of the burn off that sting. It reminds me of a certain Bible verse in the New Testament that discusses taking the board out of one's own eye before you worry about the splinter in your neighbor's. And just to wrap this whole fucked up story up in a lovely little problematic ball, you were supposed to marry your brother's wife if your brother died. That's the story of Onan that we did earlier. The difference is that's your brother's wife. It's not your sister. It's your sister-in-law. Sarah was really his sister, or his half-sister. Like, they have the same dad. So that's a whole different creepy thing. But yes, what you're referring to there, Barry, is called Levirate marriage. And Onan did the deed with his brother's wife, but pulled out because he didn't want to get his brother's wife pregnant. Because if he got his brother's wife pregnant, that child would then inherit all of his brother's possessions. Oh, it's definitely all about keeping it in the family, because you got to keep the wealth in the family. And speaking of wealth, we wrap this story up with a nice little bit of problematic bullshit. Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, my land is before you, live wherever you like. So yeah, that's how that went down. So that was just story number 1. I hope you're enjoying this ridiculousness. Moving right the fuck along, Ezekiel, painted here by Ninja Turtle Raphael, around 1518. Ezekiel is one of the most bad. Yes, Abimelech got blackmailed. That is exactly what happened. And you can look at it that way because that's a very good way to look at it. I mean, that was kind of what Abimelech accused him from. If you look at that first verse about, that first verse about why would you do this to me? It's like Abimelech was hinting that he felt like he got set up there. And he pretty much did. Kind of similar to David's extortion that we talked about earlier in the season, when David extorted people and then killed the guy, or God killed the guy, and then David married his wife anyway. And that wasn't creepy. We'll get to David and some fucked up horniness in a few minutes. So yeah, Ezekiel. This book is insane. It is right up there with Revelation. They parallel each other a lot. A lot of people think that the writer of Revelation may have cribbed some of Ezekiel's work, or at least attempted to line his work up with it to give it more validity. Ezekiel was all about performance art. Like, I can't stress that enough. He did when Ezekiel does the things he talks about in his book, you have to remember he's doing it pretty much in the middle of the city square so that everybody sees so that everybody would see that he was basically doing performance art. He claims that the city of Israel had been disobeying God for 390 years, or the northern tribes. So he lays on his left side for 390 days, eating only a little bit of bread and a little bit of water. Then he claims that the city of Judah has been disobeying God for 90 years. So he flips over to his other side and lays on that side, tied to the ground so that he can't get up for 90 days. And he also has to eat this bread. If you've ever been to a bakery and you see something called Ezekiel 4:9 bread, or you'll see that verse sometimes on loaves of particular bread, that is a barley bread that God gave Ezekiel the exact recipe for. And trust me, it's going to get a whole lot fucking weirder. So, our boy Zeke, he used some pretty strong language when he was condemning Judah, repeatedly calling the city a whore. And I mean graphically calling them a whore. How graphic? Ooh, graphic. It's also very likely that Zeke was tripping his balls off. Much like we talked about how John of Patmos had access to morning glory, where Zeke is known for multiple hallucinogenic substances, not limited to mushrooms and some other plants. Yeah, there's a whole lot of imagery in Ezekiel that gives me and just about anybody else that really looks into it the idea that this guy may have been whacked out of his head on goofballs.
Praise hail and praise Dale.
Which actually makes it more fun. I've never written anything as cool as the book of Ezekiel when I was tripping, so good for him. And so, yeah. What exactly did Zeke say about the city of Judah? Well, he said this. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of my gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. Golden dildos. The Bible is complaining. Ezekiel is pissed. He's claiming that you took gold from the temple and made golden dildos with them. That is a heavy fucking charge, and it seems awfully specific. Yep, Kurt, Bible dildos that you could kill someone with on an episode of Real Scary because they're made of solid gold. That sounds pretty bad. These sound like some lusty folks there in Judah. You have no idea. When she carried on her prostitution openly and exposed her naked body, I turned away from her in disgust, just as I had turned away from her sister. Yet she became more and more promiscuous as she recalled the days of her youth when she was a prostitute in Egypt. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of horses. So you longed for the lewdness of your youth, when in Egypt your bosom was caressed and your young breasts fondled. Should we read that sentence again? There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of horses. She here is the people of Judah. They are such whores. What God is accusing them of there is Ezekiel is saying that you are such sluts. You like to fuck horses and get jizzed on by donkeys. Basically, in a nutshell, he was saying that the Egyptians apparently were hung and you miss that big Egyptian dick. And that you would rather be back in that's Zeke 16, and then Zeke 23 is where we've got horse craziness. Yeah, he's basically saying you liked being subjugated back in Egypt, and you were content to just take that Egyptian dong and just stay there and be whores and hookers for the rest of your life. Ezekiel 23:20 at sporting events would be phenomenal. But yeah, that is a heavy fucking charge because there's a whole lot of things to unpack in this verse. First of all, is he saying that you miss big dick? Because it's like she lusted after her lovers. And then he was very specific about their genitals were huge and they apparently shot ropes for days. Like, that's really fucking weird, right? Right. And here's what I think is very interesting about this verse, which again leads me to believe that there is probably some severe post-editing done. If you've ever seen the statues of the Roman statues, they usually do not, they're not usually, Greek statues, Roman statues, classic art, if you will, they're not usually packing. Because back then, a huge dong was considered grotesque. So, it seems here that, Ezekiel is definitely size shaming what they're into, saying, oh, you want those grotesque big dicks that were back in Egypt. And I don't need to get into all the implications of that verse when you start getting into the racial elements and, like, walk like an Egyptian has a new meaning now. Fucking A, Kurt. But yeah, there's just a lot to unpack there. But yeah, I mean, right? Right? Like, you could add the whole racial element to it. You could, that stereotype. You could add the whole, basically, it sounds like Ezekiel has penis envy here. And, he's really upset that, or God is upset that he likes her old dick better. Like, there's a whole lot of insecurity in this verse. And it's just, and again, whose admission was like that of horses? What the actual fuck? Like, you can't really call somebody a slut more than that. But, like, you like to be covered in cum, like, as much comes out of a horse. And you only like to fuck those donkey dick motherfuckers. That's what he said. I didn't say it. That's there in the book. You can go read it yourself. I'm not making this shit up. So, poor Zeke. Remember, if you remember, yes, it does. If you remember, I was talking about how Zeke was doing his performance art. And, laying on the side for 390 days and 90 days on the other side. And the whole thing with eating his bread. Well, about that bread. Because, there's a lot of these Christian companies. And you can Google this if you think I'm making it up. They make Ezekiel 4:9 bread. And his bread that is used is made with the recipe God gives Ezekiel that I'm going to show you in a second. But I will guarantee you that they do not follow the recipe exactly. Which, again, if you're a Bible literalist, I don't see how you can follow part of it. Don't you have to follow the whole thing, right? Well, I don't know. Yeah, but I bet you it wasn't cooked the right way, Barry. Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt. Put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself. You are to eat it during the 390 days you lay on your side. Weigh out 20 shekels of food to eat each day and eat it at set times. Also measure out 1/6 of a hin of water and drink it at set times. Eat the food as you would a loaf of the barley bread. Bake it in the sight of the people using human excrement for fuel. The Lord said, in this way the people of Israel will eat defiled food among the nations where I will drive them. Then I said, No, not so, sovereign Lord. I have never defiled myself. From my youth until now, I have never eaten anything found dead or torn by wild animals. No impure meat has ever entered my mouth. Very well, he said. I will let you bake your bread over cow dung instead of human excrement. Shit bread. Bake your bread over shit. What's an interesting scientific little fact here is that human poop does not work great as a fuel, whereas cow dung works very well as a biofuel. So, at least they got that right. But yeah, again, they love this, this Ezekiel 4:9 bread. And yeah, I've had Ezekiel bread. But why are you doing this unless you're going to cook it over cow shit? And again, this bread was eaten while he was supposed to be in mourning and like showing their destruction. Basically, God said, I'm going to have you make this crazy bread, and you're going to eat bread and water because you're all going to be slaves, because I'm going to drive you out into all these other nations. And I want you, I want you to eat this shit bread. And I love here. Look at it right there in verse 14. Ezekiel flat out tells God no. It is crazy bread. Ezekiel flat out says no. I'm not cooking my food over human shit. And it almost seems like God is snickering, like, all right. What about cow shit? Yeah, cow shit. Okay, like almost like God's looking over at the angels, like, guys, it was this close. I almost had them convinced to cook the bread over cow shit. This is a spot where God flat out changed his mind. Ezekiel, it's not even like changed his mind. Ezekiel flat out refused, and God was like, all right, yeah, that's probably ridiculous. How about cow shit? So, yes, oh shit is the most literal response you could have there, Bale. But yeah, so that was just a little fun add-on to the sexy time about donkey dicks and horse jizz. Moving right along, we're going to talk about 50 Shades of Solomon. Yep, you hit them with that one, Bale. They don't like it. Our homeboy, Raphael, one of the best Ninja Turtles, painted this. I like this painting because it reminds me of the painting from Goodfellas. Solomon's looking this way, she's looking this way, this guy's going, what do you want from me? Love it. So, we all know King Solomon, right? He's come up here once before. He was famous for being very wise, allegedly. The big thing that they used to illustrate how wise he was he says, cut a baby in half, counting on the fact that the mother would be like, no, don't cut the baby in half. That's apparently his... I guess they do say that people are getting smarter as we evolve, so... No, this is not Solomon Grundy. He was born on a Monday. This guy was married way before Wednesday, so... Solomon was about as horny as they came. What I am about to show you is the horniest section, not just in the Bible, it's the horniest section in just a lot of books, period. The Bible says he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Yes, that's a very nice round number. Alright, first of all, there's like a real good chance this guy never existed. But I digress. He is probably about as real as King Arthur. But that's not here nor there. That's not for today. Let's pretend in our story universe, he exists. Dude's got 1,000 wives. That are 1,000 women that he needs to sexually, that are there for him. You got to think that at least the 700 wives, that means he had to have all these weddings. Even if he's marrying them en masse, he likely laid with them all that night because consummating the marriage was kind of a big deal. So even when these marriages are made for political reasons, yeah, how are you going to keep up with 1,000 women like that? This, I also would think, that by having 700 wives proves that Solomon was a fucking moron and not the smartest man to ever live. Because I got 699 reasons why he's a fucking idiot. Just saying. One wife, fantastic. 2 wives, you're out of your fucking mind. 700, the fuck out of here. You're a dum-dum. Now, Solomon wrote a little book. I have spent the better part of my 40-some years on the planet, because I became aware of this book pretty young, and I have spent the better part of 40 years of my time on this planet trying to figure out why the fuck this book is in the Bible. This book makes no fucking sense. They can't even agree on a name of it. When I was a kid, you called it Song of Solomon. Then it became the Songs of Solomon. Now, most people refer to it as the Song of Songs. It is only 8 chapters long. You can read it in about 20 minutes, probably. It's a quick read. It's a quick read. No, this is way worse than the Key of Solomon. Way worse. So, Solomon, Song of Songs is a really dumb name. Song of Solomon at least told you who wrote it. The reason they're calling it Song of Songs is some people think, with Solomon's whole not being real, it would have been really tough for him to write this. Not being real generally inhibits your ability to create things. So, who wrote this? And again, the real question is, why in the fuck is it in the Bible? I have gotten a billion dipshit answers. None of them are any good. I'm not going to waste your time with them here. You can pretty much most people just take a mulligan on why this is in there, and they just skip over it. Some people will make a very lame attempt to say that Solomon writing this thing about how much he wants to bang his new wife is really talking about how much God wants to bang us metaphorically through the love of salvation. Again, why did you choose that metaphor? That's a bad metaphor. That's an uncomfortable metaphor for a lot of reasons. But yes, Solomon writes this 8-chapter book as a conversation between a bridegroom and a bride about how much they want to do the nasty and how beautiful they think the other one is. There is a lot of very pretty poetic language describing her legs as looking like cedars, and it goes on and on. It's lovely if you're into very horny books. But there are a few sections that go way beyond the pale, that are way fucking hornier than has any business being in a in a book that is such, it's so prudish. The book, Christians tend to be prudish. I would love to read these next sections in church. Your 2 breasts are lovely. They are like 2 young antelopes. Girl, you got titties like antelopes. That is a phenomenal line, and I'm going to go tell Tiffany that right after this. You are as graceful as a palm tree. Your breasts are as sweet as the freshest fruit. He's a titty man. I don't blame him. Solomon loves titties. Clearly. You think I'm lying? I am a wall. My breasts are like well-built towers. So in your eyes, I've become like someone who makes you happy. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? That is the woman speaking there. She said, I got titties, bro. I know you like titties. This is the Bible. I'm not reading penthouse letters. I'm reading the Bible.
Praise hail and praise Dale.
Wake up, north wind. Come, south wind, blow on my garden, then its sweet smell will spread everywhere. Let my love come into his garden, let him taste its fine fruits. That's cunnilingus. You will never convince me that is anything but. If you don't think she's telling him to get downtown, you've never had sex. There's no other way to take that, right? No other way to take that. I'm waiting. If somebody's got a different way to interpret that. Because it's not even veiled. My beloved put his hand by the hole of the door, and my bowels were moved for him. She said he's about to come in the room, and she is so excited she shit herself. Now, some people have tried to reinterpret that as what she's actually saying is her heart stirred. I like better to think of it as she was so excited when he started to come into the door for some sexing that she shit herself. And apparently that didn't slow things down, because if you see, that's chapter 5. They get to the titties in chapter 7 and 8. So he comes in the room, she shits herself, and then it becomes titty times. Again, not making this up. Not making this up. There you are. Like, those are the words. I didn't make them up. SOS stands for what the fuck is this? But also, yeah, it's Song of Solomon. It could have been backdoor loving. It could have been so. There could have been a whole lot of things. The other part, about blow on my garden, let a sweet smell spread everywhere. That's not as ambiguous. And I'm still trying to figure out this whole your two breasts are lovely. They're like two young antelopes. I have maybe in the Middle East referring to people's titties as antelope-like was the way to go, but uh-oh. Looked like my screen froze for a second there. Let's try this again. Okay, guys, I think it's fixed again. I apologize if that was free, but yeah, that's what's going on here. Some shit. Alright, we're going to move along to the grossest dowry ever. You know what a dowry is. This was painted by Ernst Josephson around 1878. He painted very, very realistic stuff. As you can see, this is a very realist painting. I advise everybody take a look at some of his stuff. It's very good. He's a Swedish painter. But we remember Saul and David. We talked about these two. He Googled young antelope, and it does not seem to, in fact, be a compliment. King Saul knew that David was digging on his daughter Michal after the previous flirtation with his older daughter, Merab. Yeah, so Saul, if you remember, we talked about this. Saul knew that David was going to usurp him and take his throne. Saul could smell what the rock was cooking. He didn't like it. So shortly after this painting here, where David is lustily playing some harp and singing for Saul, because Saul used to get headaches, and that seemed to calm his headaches, Saul grabbed a javelin and threw it at David. David ran away, because that's what you do when people throw javelins at you. And David was hiding out in the hills, and Saul sent his men to him and was like, look, we don't need to fight. There's no reason for us to fight, even though there was definitely a reason for them to fight. And so, hello, Stanley. And so Saul says, look, I want to have you as my son-in-law. Your best friend is my son. I heard you think my daughter Merab is pretty cute. Why don't you marry her and we can be a family? Then we can put all this behind us. And David goes, how could I offer a dowry to a king? Like, I'm a poor man. What would I have to give the king? While they him and haw over this, Saul goes, I ain't got time to wait. He marries Merab off to another king as a political move. And he comes back to David again. It's like, hey, my daughter Michal also thinks you're a cool guy. He goes, my daughter Michal also thinks you're pretty fly. I'd love to have you as a son-in-law. And David says again, how could a poor man like me ever give you something worthwhile to convince you that, I wouldn't feel like I'm in your debt when we got married? Saul has a plan, and it's disgusting. And Saul said, thus shall ye say to David, the king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. So yeah, go bring me 100 enemy foreskins. That's what he said. So when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins and gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave Michal his daughter to wife, And Saul knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet more afraid of David, and Saul became David's enemy continually. Exactly. I mean, it was clearly an attempt to get him killed in a battle, which David would actually employ later to cover up his affair with Uriah to much more success. So you can say that David learned from Saul's attempt to get him killed over some hanky-panky here, and used it to successfully murder someone later to cover up his hanky-panky. Because David was never a good guy. We've established that. But yeah, notice that Saul asked for 100 foreskins. David goes out and kills 200 guys because, I mean, he wanted to show up foreskin rich. And that is one of the most disgusting sentences I've ever had to say. But yeah, he went out and killed 200 people, cut off their foreskins, which is so fucking gross. And then packed them all up in a basket, apparently, and marched into the king and goes, "Here you go, buddy. I got 200 for you. Where's Michal?" You know, yeah. Yeah. Like, again, I didn't write this shit. I'm not making this up. This fucking nonsense is from them, not me. But yeah, that one is, we come to our final tale. We're gonna stay on foreskins. Because it's just too... Ew, an Ed Gein lampshade. That's disgusting. But kind of hilarious. So, this is a painting by Pietro Perugino from around 1482, and I want to point out how fucking racist it is. For just a minute. It's a famous painting of the beginning of the Exodus. Everybody, all the Hebrews are leaving. And you can see how pasty fucking white those people are. What is especially white is the woman in blue there in the front of in the foreground. That is Zipporah. Zipporah is Moses' wife. She is the original sassy black woman character in, like, narrative history. She does not tolerate Moses' shit, and she's definitely a black lady. She's referred to as Moses' Cushite wife. Cushites would have been people from North Africa. They were talked about as being very beautiful. Their ebony skin was they were very beautiful people. Kind of the Nubian dream, if you will. And that was Moses' wife. Yet she is always depicted as the crackerest woman ever in these fucking paintings. Like, you could at least make her a Ritz, not a Saltine. But I digress. But the art nerd in me wouldn't let that go. So, Moses was married to her. She was the daughter of the high priest of Midian. You might remember Midian from a story about a guy named Gideon. He's one of those judges. He came right after our homeboy Ehud, the left-handed dagger assassin. Wait, there's whitewashing of the art? Ezekiel fuel diaper. So, yeah, Zipporah was a daughter of the high priest of Midian. She was married to Moses. How'd they meet? She was given to Moses while he was on the run from a murder charge, and he helped her water some sheep. That is their how did you two meet story. Zipporah and her sisters came down to the watering hole to water their sheep, and Moses was hiding out there because he had left Egypt after he had murdered a guy, and some shepherds showed up and were like, fuck this, we're going to water our sheep before the women do, and they tried to shove the women out of the way. Moses, being the hothead, violent, crazy person that he was, beats the shit out of these guys, chases them off, and then proceeds to water the sheep for the women. When the women get back home, their dad apparently knew this was going to go down because he says, hey, How'd you get back so early? I figured you'd have to wait for all the other shepherds to water theirs because they wouldn't let women water their sheep ahead of them. And she goes, this dude Moses, he threw down, then watered our sheep for us. Jethro was his name, by the way, which is amazing. Jethro goes, Moses, that makes you my son-in-law. Zippy, you belong to him now. What a touching story. Does not reek of misogyny and, just disgusting things. No. It's a great story. That is a great How We Met story. So, at this point, God comes to Moses, and he's like, hey, I need you to go tell the Pharaoh to go fuck himself. Let my people go, and I want you to take my people out of Egypt. You guys know the story. We did the whole 10 plagues. You guys know that whole thing, right? Well, on the way there, Moses, what happens next, this next passage is so fucking insane that it's often just ignored. But we're not going to ignore it because it's fucking insane and it's awesome. It's really not awesome. It's insane. And you see, there's a lot of dispute as to what this next text means. So we're going to read it first, and then we'll analyze. And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return to Egypt, see that thou do those wonders before the Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. Wonders. He calls the ridiculous, unbelievable amount of death and destruction that he's going to rain down on the Egyptians wonders. But I will harden his heart that he shall not let the people go. Right there, once again, God is confessing to the fact that he's going to make it impossible for Pharaoh to obey him so that he can punish him further. It is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Great Silverchair song, by the way. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. So yeah, he's telling him about the 10 plagues, right? Hard left turn here. And it came to pass by the way of the inn that the Lord met him, and the Lord sought to kill him. God just decides out of nowhere he's going to kill Moses. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. What? Yeah. So out of nowhere, it just total left turn. God says, I'm going to fucking kill Moses at this inn. And Zipporah quickly circumcises their infant son with a sharp rock and throws the foreskin at Moses and says, you are a bloody husband to me. And that appeases God, and he doesn't kill Moses and allows him to go lead the Exodus, and the whole rest of the Bible happen. It's almost like God changed his mind again. But can we talk about that for a minute? Why the fuck did God just decide he wanted to kill him? There's a couple thoughts. The most common one that I think makes the most sense because of the following verse about the infant mutilation is that what was going on was that basically Moses had not followed God's rules. God's rules were that his people would be circumcised. That would show you were different, is have a different dick. That apparently somehow made you different in a way that God cared about. Don't think about it too hard. It's weird. Don't think about it too hard. Don't say too hard. But anyway, yeah. So Moses apparently had not done that to his son yet. We're led to believe that apparently the time had passed. We don't get a date of how old the child is, but clearly the child is old enough that this should have happened. And so God was pissed and was going to kill Moses. The implication is that God is saying, you won't even follow my simple instructions like this. How can I trust you to lead an exodus out of this country when you won't even follow my rules? And so Zipporah, who found the rules repulsive, there are multiple times where, like I said, I called her the sassy black woman. She makes her mind known, and Zipporah is not your typical step in line, fall in line Bible wife, which is why she gets sent away a couple times. It's, again, the misogyny is thick. It is also, though, why I love that you ever meet a Jewish woman named Zippy, and you will meet a lot, their name is Zipporah, and they go by Zippy. And I've met a few darling women who embody that name and the spirit behind it. But yeah, basically, she thought the circumcision was gross, but realized God was going to kill her husband if she didn't circumcise her son, so she did it and threw it at him to let him know her disgust. Notice, God doesn't do shit. She blatantly does not approve of his, rules and makes it that she'll follow them, but she doesn't fucking like it. And God doesn't do a fucking thing. So, again, his arbitrary when he gets mad about stuff and when he doesn't get mad about stuff is really hard to follow. Because it kind of feels like she's, pissed there. But yeah, Zippy mutilates their child with a rock, and that keeps God from killing Abraham. Yeah, holy dick and antelope titties. Those stories. I'm curious, has anybody ever heard any of those Bible stories before? I'm very curious. Because, I've known them my whole life, but they're not super common, and they're fucking insane, and then you start to realize why. Because nobody wants to explain this shit to kids in Sunday school. Yeah. I'm going to harden his line, and then I'm going to kill Moses. Oh, wait, they smashed the baby's wiener with a rock. I'm cool. Yeah, they skip these. What's funny is they skip these in adult church. That's the thing. They find these stories difficult to talk about with children because, they're quite prudish. And so then they, they don't ever learn about it as adults. Yeah, fundamentalists are kind of insane. But, yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed our first of the custom sermon series. Bale, especially you. I hope that was what you were looking for, because that's what you got. But, yeah, this was a lot of fun. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. And, yeah, I am so glad everybody stopped by today. Glad we could have some fun with these crazy fucking stories. And, it's just, what are you gonna do, right? This is... Yeah, donkey dick and antelope titties. Those are forever. Those are my gift to you on this Labor Day, Bale. Genital mutilation, donkey dicks, horse cum, antelope titties, possible backdoor Bible time. I really delved into the depths. Hashtag blessed. It was certainly something. Oh my god. Alright, well, thanks so much for being here, everybody. Please enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. I hope you have a good time. I hope you play games. I hope you do whatever it is in life that makes you feel fulfilled. And, we're gonna... not seeing any homies on right now, but, I believe, Bale, were you gonna play some games this afternoon? Because if so, people should hop over and watch Bale play some games. It'll be a good time. It always is. And, yeah, remember, apparently, God hates big dicks. So I think that might explain all of Christianity right there. God hates big dicks. It's canon. Have a great fucking day, everybody. And, dude, thank you guys for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and, we'll be back soon. Donkey dicks, antelope titties, and tons of murmur. The Bible experience. It would be completely good.